No, I would not change onigiri to jelly donut. Let's just get that out of the way. Hi! I originally uploaded this video in 2018, and since then I've become pretty good at anticipating the kinds of reactions some fans are going to have to the things I say about translation, so I'm going to clarify some things as we go. In this video, I'm going to give some examples where changing a translation because of cultural differences is actually justified. Yes, sometimes changing things is justified. I'm going to give further context to these examples as they come up because I know it's tempting to see any change in a translation and think, it's the jelly donuts all over again! Anyway, here's the video. Okay, so here's a scenario where there is a guy who is talking about how excited he is about something. In Japan, there is something called ensoku, and it is a really big event. Like, I personally have not experienced this because I've never been a child in Japan and I've never lived with children in Japan of elementary school age, but I've seen a lot of it in manga and anime, and I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this video have also seen it come up a lot in anime and manga. But ensoku is basically, it's a field trip, but it's a very special kind of field trip. I think it happens once a year, and the kids, they all get on the bus and they go about an hour or so away from where they live. The point is they go to a nature-esque place, and then they go on a hike or a really long nature walk usually. And then when they reach the summit of the hill or wherever their destination is, they sit down and they have a communal picnic. Their moms pack them these really nice obento, and then they share with their friends in the picnic. And it's this really fun thing for kids in Japan. We don't have that in the United States. I mean, we have field trips, some of us more so than others. Schools in the States are nowhere near as standardized as they are in Japan, so it's not this universal experience that all kids have. I had really fun field trips growing up, but I went to a school that we went on very many field trips. So I find that the best example, the best way to translate this metaphor, instead of I'm as excited as a kid the day before ensoku, is I'm just as excited as a kid on Christmas Eve. So changing ensoku to Christmas Eve in this particular case was justified, and the reason why was it was purely metaphorical. The purpose of this line of dialogue was to show a character's excitement. The story itself was not at all about ensoku. If it was about ensoku, I definitely would not have changed ensoku to Christmas Eve. The word ensoku never came up again in the story. I could have also changed ensoku to another universally exciting event for children like a birthday, or I could have simply gone with field trip, but again, the purpose of the line was to show a character's excitement and anticipation of a universally liked event for children, so I went with Christmas Eve. So scenario 2, it's two people. One person is inside of a dwelling, the other person is outside of the dwelling. So person A is inside, person B is outside. Person B tells person A, oh no, I forgot something and I left it inside. I better come in and get it. Person B says, oh, it's okay. It must be annoying for you to come in and get it. I'll get it for you. So I don't know, it's just a little weird. To the untrained Western ear. Why would it be annoying to just walk? She's literally standing right outside the front door, 2 feet away from indoors. She could just walk in and get the thing. But here's the thing, the reason why she can't just do that and it's annoying for her to come all the way back in and get her thing and then go out again is because in Japan, I'm sure most of you know this, they take off their shoes when they go indoors. But here's the thing, it's not just that they take off their shoes when they go indoors because it keeps the house clean. That's one of the reasons, but really the main reason they do it is just because it's something that they do. It's just ingrained in them. It's part of their culture. To walk indoors with shoes on is just as taboo as it is, in the United States, to walk outside topless. For a woman, I guess I should quantify that. But yeah, well, I mean, maybe it's not that taboo, but it's pretty taboo. I remember once when I was living in Japan, I was in a similar situation. My host mom was about to drive me to school. I was getting into the car. I had my uniform on, I had my shoes on, and I was kind of like, I forgot something inside, because I was thinking, we're kind of running late, and if I run back and get it, I'm gonna have to take my shoes off, and then I'm gonna have to get the thing, and then I'm gonna have to put my shoes back on, and then I'm gonna have to run out again. And so I asked her, can I please just go inside with my shoes on? And she looked at me like I was on fire. She's like, no, don't do it. Like, it was so weird. I'm like, okay, I'll take my shoes off. But yeah, so that's another scenario that if I translated it literally as, oh no, it must be annoying for you to come back inside and get it, I'll do it for you, when she's literally just standing outside the door, that doesn't exactly make sense to a Western audience. So in that case, I have to tweak it a little bit into something else. Something more like the guy's just being polite, like, oh, it's okay, I'll get it for you. Versus, oh, it would be a horrible annoyance for you to come back in and then go out again, even though you're only 2 feet outside the door.
The reason it makes sense to tweak the translation a little here is it comes across as passive-aggressive to say, oh, I'll just get it for you. It must be annoying for you to have to come in and get it yourself. In Japan, yes, it would be annoying to come in and get it because you'd have to take off your shoes, get the thing, then put your shoes back on. In other parts of the world where it's not taboo to go inside with your shoes on, it's not that annoying to go back inside to get something if you're standing right outside the door. The purpose of this line was to show that the character was being kind and chivalrous by offering to get the thing for her so she wouldn't have to take her shoes off and on. By leaving in the "it must be annoying for you" part, it really comes off as passive-aggressive or condescending instead of kind and chivalrous like it's supposed to. That's why, in this context, it makes sense to tweak the translation a little.
All right, here is a much shorter and simpler scenario. So in Japan, they have, instead of signing things, like just writing your name, everybody has ohanko, which is like, it's just a stamp. And you have it made, and it's a stamp that's basically your initials, I guess, which is weird because to me it feels like it would be so easy for people to forge each other's signatures. You just take the person's hanko and then stamp something. So I don't understand why that's somehow better, although in a way it's kind of nice because if you're like me and you have like a really, really flat line kind of signature, it's nice because you can very clearly see that that's my name. Instead of just a flat line. But yeah, in Japanese, if they're like, oh, could you please stamp this with your initials? It's like, we don't have that in the States, so I just translate that as, could you sign this, please?
In this example, the hanko stamp never came up again in the story. If it did, it might be worth translating it as name stamp or hanko name stamp. But since the hanko is not used in the story again, and since the purpose of this line of dialogue is purely transactional and does not develop the story or the characters at all, it's not really worth going through the trouble of adding a footnote, which my clients don't let me do anyway, to explain what a hanko is, when I could just say a phrase that basically means the same thing. Please sign here. All these examples I'm giving, by the way, are from text-based games too, so there isn't even an image of a hanko stamp that would confuse the reader.
So in this scenario, to European ears it might not seem strange, but to American, like United States, North American ears, it's weird because our ice creams are like this. It's like, it was not uncommon where I grew up to have like a 5-gallon, however big, tub of ice cream like in your fridge that you got at the store, and you go through the whole thing in a week because like people from the United States eat a lot of sweets. But yeah, in Japan, I have never seen ice cream for sale larger than like, you know, your typical Haagen-Dazs containers. I think that's a pint. So they're quite light. Ice cream is a light item in Japan, but in the United States, ice cream is a very heavy item. So when I'm translating something like that, like, oh, you can carry the light things like ice cream, I either have to be specific and say, like this mini ice cream, which also sounds weird, because why are you buying mini ice cream? What is that anyway? Or I can just flat out, like if the ice cream doesn't even come up later in conversation, I can just flat out change it to something else that's light, like sponges.
This is similar to the door example I gave earlier. This line of dialogue was not about ice cream. Its purpose was to show that the love interest is being kind and chivalrous by offering to carry heavy things for the protagonist. The contents of their shopping bag are not brought up later in the story, like they don't sit down and eat the ice cream in the next scene. Now, one critique I can give about the choice to use sponges is that it can come across as a bit sexist. Like, I'll carry the heavy things because I'm the big strong man, and you can carry the sponges because you're a girl and that means you like cleaning. In hindsight, I could have gone with candy bars or some other thing that's still a dessert but is known to be lightweight, or I could have been less specific and just gone with you carry the lighter things. Either of those would have worked. Anyway, those were some examples of culture affecting translations and when it's actually justified to make changes. And hot take, but I don't actually think changing onigiri to jelly donut was the worst offense ever committed to anime. Was the episode about onigiri? No, it was just a passing remark in a scene where the kids were eating. And we all think it's cringe now because we all know what onigiri are, but you have to remember that back in the early aughts when Pokemon first came out, US Americans, kids especially, were not anywhere near as knowledgeable about Japanese cuisine as they are now. Keeping it as onigiri was probably deemed too confusing for audiences 25 years ago. Again, I would not have changed onigiri to jelly donut, but I really don't think it was as horrible a change to make as some people seem to think it was. So the next time you are made aware of a changed translation like this in an anime, game, or manga, before you get angry about it, ask yourself the following questions. What was the purpose of this line of dialogue? Was it a pivotal plot point? Was it to show an aspect of a character's personality? Was it a metaphor for something? Or was it purely a throwaway line that was rather inconsequential? As long as the change doesn't affect the plot, the character's personalities and motivations, and the overall tone or vibe of a story, it probably was justified. Remember that next time you come across a jelly donut.